Hello, you're watching DD India and I'm Preeti presenting this edition of the news. In the next 1 hour, we'll get you through everything that's making it to the headlines. We'll get you national headlines, international updates, also updates from the world of business and sports, enough to keep you engaged for the next 1 hour. First, the headlines. New union ministers take charge today. Mansukh Mandaviya takes charge of Health Ministry. Ashwini Vaishnav takes charge of Communications, Mehti and Railways Ministries, while Anurag Thakur takes charge of INB Ministry. Prime Minister Narendra Modi calls a meeting of the Cabinet and Council of Ministers today evening. In a mega cabinet expansion of the NDA government, 43 ministers take oath of office and secrecy, includes 15 cabinet ministers and 28 ministers of state. Performers elevated to cabinet status. The new younger council of ministers sees wide representation across communities and regions. 7 women ministers take oath. More than 36.48 crore doses of COVID-19 vaccines administered so far. Recovery rate stands at 97.18%. 45,892 new cases reported in the last 24 hours. 4 terrorists killed in 2 separate encounters in Puchal area of Pulwama and in Zodhar area of Kulgam in Jammu and Kashmir. Search operations by the security forces is underway. Four people suspected of assassinating Haiti's president Jovenel Moïse shot dead by the security forces. 2 others detained while the search operation continues. Moïse was shot dead in his private residence at Port-au-Prince last night. 2-week state emergency declared by the government to track the assassinators. Tennis legend Roger Federer crashed out of Wimbledon in the quarterfinals after losing to Poland's Hubert Hurkacz yesterday. Received standing ovation at the end of his All-England club career. In Euro 2020, England beat Denmark 2-1 in the semi-final at Wembley Stadium last night to play against Italy in the finals. Those are the top stories. Let's get to the news in detail now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi held an interaction with directors of centrally funded technical institutions through video conferencing. The Prime Minister there holding an interaction with directors of centrally funded technical institutions through video conferencing. The newly inducted ministers have started taking charge of their ministries. Mansukh Mandaviya today took charge as the new Minister of Health and Family Welfare. Anurag Thakur today took charge as the Minister of Information and Broadcasting. Information and Broadcasting Secretary Amit Khare was also present on the occasion. After taking charge, Anurag Thakur also held a meeting with the officials of the ministry. Speaking to media persons, he said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has done terrific work in the last 7 years to take India forward. He added that he will carry forward the work done by people before him in the Information and Broadcasting Ministry. He assured that he will try to fulfill the responsibility given to him by Prime Minister.
दुनिया के सबसे बड़े लोकतंत्र में जहां मोदी जी ने देश को आगे ले जाने का बहुत शानदार काम किया है पिछले 7 वर्षों में। सूचना प्रसारण मंत्रालय के माध्यम से हम कैसे और जन जन तक पहुंच पाएं और क्या क्या काम जो पीछे मुझसे पूर्व बहुत बड़े लोगों ने यहां पर किए हैं उनको मैं भी आगे बढ़ा पाऊं। वहीं दूसरी ओर जो जिम्मेदारी माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने मुझे दी है, मैं उस पर खरा उतरने का हर संभव प्रयास करूंगा। जो विश्वास व्यक्त किया है उस पर खरा उतरने का प्रयास करूंगा और आशा करता हूं कि आप सबके सहयोग से इस जिम्मेदारी का निर्वहन ठीक ढंग से कर पाऊंगा।
Ashwini Vaishnav also took charge as the new Minister of Railways today. Speaking to media persons, he said that in the last 7 years, a lot of good work has been done, which he will take forward. He is sure to work towards realizing Prime Minister Modi's vision for the railways.
मैं सबसे पहले प्रधानमंत्री जी को धन्यवाद देता हूं कि इतनी बड़ी जिम्मेदारी दी है। रेलवे प्रधानमंत्री जी के बहुत ही उनके विजन में बहुत बड़ा हिस्सा है और प्रधानमंत्री जी का विजन रेलवे के लिए जैसे जन जन तक ट्रांसफॉर्म हो लोगों की लाइफ, एक आम आदमी, एक गरीब, एक वंचित, एक किसान, पिछड़े से पिछड़े व्यक्ति को भी रेलवे के बेनिफिट मिले, ऐसा उनका बड़ा विजन है। तो इस विजन के लिए मैं काम करूंगा और प्रधानमंत्री जी के विजन को इम्प्लीमेंट करने के लिए मेहनत करूंगा।
Kiran Rijiju also took charge as Law and Justice Minister. Speaking to media, the Law Minister said fulfilling public expectations will be his first priority.
जो भी जिम्मेदारी हमको देंगे हम उस पर खरा उतरना ये हमारा प्राथमिकता है। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी जब रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी देते हैं तो सोच के दिए होंगे, तो उस पर खरा उतरना हमारा सबसे पहला कोशिशें रहेंगे। जनता की अपेक्षाओं को पूरा करना, आकांक्षाएं हैं, अपेक्षा है, उसको पूरा करना। इसलिए मैं मानता हूं कि जो भी जिम्मेदारी मिलता है दिल लगा के काम करना चाहिए।
JDU President and Rajya Sabha MP from Bihar, Ramchandra Prasad Singh, took charge as the Union Minister of Steel. Minister of State in the Ministry of External Affairs and the Minister of State in the Ministry of Culture, Meenakshi Lekhi, has said that women have been given big responsibilities during the recent cabinet reshuffle. She added that people used to speak of women empowerment, but Prime Minister Modi made it possible that the country be led by empowered women.
महिलाओं को बड़ी जिम्मेदारी दी है, वो भी प्रधानमंत्री जी की एक बहुत दूर की सोच है, क्योंकि लोग अब तक महिला सशक्तिकरण की बात करते रहे, लेकिन सशक्त महिलाओं के द्वारा देश का नेतृत्व हो, ऐसा प्रधानमंत्री जी ने करके दिखाया है। जो भी शपथ के शब्द हैं, उसमें से एक भी शब्द निरर्थक नहीं होगा और हम पूरा प्रयास करेंगे उसके एक एक शब्द में जान डालने का। मोदी जी के अपने कोई सपने नहीं है, बल्कि मोदी जी भारत के सपनों को पूरा करने में लगे हुए हैं, और जब वो भारत के सपनों को पूरा कर रहे हैं तो उसमें विदेश नीति का भी एक बहुत बड़ा हिस्सा है कि भारत का जो सही प्रोजेक्शन है वो दुनिया के आगे हो सके।
In a series of fresh faces, Dr. Bharti Praveen Pawar took charge as the Minister of State in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Former Minister of State for Home Affairs G. Krishna Reddy took charge as the Minister of Culture and Tourism. Minister of State for Tourism Ajay Bhatt, Shripad Nayak and Minister of State for Culture Meenakshi Lekhi accompanied him. Former Tourism Minister Prahlad Patel also greeted him at the occasion. Newly inducted Minister Virendra Singh also took charge as Minister of State for Social Justice today.
कोई भी जब कार्य प्रारंभ करते हैं तो अपने वरिष्ठों को जो है ना उनका आशीर्वाद लेकर करते हैं। अपने कार्यालय पर और अपने डॉक्टर श्यामा प्रसाद मुखर्जी, पंडित दीनदयाल उपाध्याय जी को पुष्पांजलि अर्पित करने के लिए हम लोग आए थे।
The Union Cabinet and the Council of Ministers will meet today, a day after Prime Minister Narendra Modi carried out a major expansion and reshuffle of his ministers. Prime Minister is expected to make some important decisions. The two meetings will be held back to back. While the Cabinet meeting is likely to take place at 5 p.m., the Council of Ministers may meet at 7 p.m. Prime Minister Narendra Modi today held an interaction with directors of centrally funded technical institutions through video conferencing. And to get us more on that, our correspondent Arun Sharma is joining us on phone line. Arun, good afternoon. Tell us more details. We tell our viewers that Prime Minister Narendra Modi held an interaction with directors of centrally funded technical institutions through video conferencing. What was on the agenda, and let us know more about it.
Well, it was a significant meeting as far as the Skill India of our country is concerned. Today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with the directors of the centrally funded technical universities. Now, these are the top universities of our country, and the focus of this meeting primarily was on the fact as to how can the skilled manpower be prepared, specifically in the context of this post-COVID world. That's number one. Number two, the aspect is that, this fact, Preeti, that, India started this Skill India mission so that the youngsters of our country can be given this technical know-how, knowledge, and of course, the skilled manpower can be created. When we compare, this human resource or the manpower of with the countries of or with other countries like South Korea for that matter, US for that matter, over there the skilled manpower, if you look at the entire population size, the skilled manpower is 70%. Like for South Korea, the skilled manpower is more than 80%. When we talk about USA, the skilled manpower size is more than 60-65%. So idea is that how can India be part of this such a global stature whereby India can provide quality manpower, skilled manpower, and the manpower that adds value to its work or the job. That is the need of the hour. So how can primarily this, the technical university can play a significant role in drafting primarily the course or the curriculum, the hands-on experiences or the practical knowledge that can be given to the students of our country that is, relevant in today's time. How can the current practical knowledge or practical subsets can be upgraded primarily so that the students of our country who are taking this technical education, they can be upgraded in the context of the relevance primarily which is there as of now as far as the skilled manpower is concerned. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has often, spoken about the fact that it is necessary to have skilled knowledge or skilled manpower. But apart from skilled knowledge or skilled manpower, there is also need for value addition. For example, if in case a person who knows to drive a car, if he's a driver, so that's a skill set. But if same driver is having a skill set primarily of having a understanding or knowledge of a foreign language, maybe French or Spanish, so that's a value addition. So in a similar fashion, what government of India is as of now trying to do, that how can value addition can be created in our in this technical world, and how can India not only create manpower, skilled manpower for itself, but can also export this skilled manpower to other countries as well, quality manpower primarily. So these technical universities play an important role right from the field of electronics, engineering, to various other fields, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi did interact with these, top technical universities directors as to, what can be the way forward in the post-COVID world. Because in the post-COVID world, Preeti, all our requirements will get changed. in this post-COVID world, primarily, we know this fact, the kind of working style will change. Because earlier, more and more physical work and physical activities used to happen, interactions used to happen. But now everything is happening cloud-based. Interactions are happening virtually. More and more dependency is on technology. So how can the skilled manpower of our country, the technical knowledge hubs of our country can upgrade themselves so that the students of our country primarily can be imparted the same knowledge. So in that context, this meeting, of course, was very much significant, which Prime Minister Narendra Modi, undertook today in the morning, whereby Prime Minister Narendra Modi interacted with the top, directors primarily of the top technical universities of our country. Preeti?
All right, Arun, thank you so much for joining in with those inputs. That was our correspondent telling us more about the meeting which the Prime Minister had, the interaction which the Prime Minister had with the directors of centrally funded technical institutions, and that was done through video conferencing. Up next, let's get you the COVID update across the country. When we talk of the COVID situation and the vaccination drive, India's cumulative vaccination coverage has exceeded 36.48 crore today as per the provisional report till 7 a.m. A total of 36 crore 48 lakh 47,549 vaccine doses have been administered across the country so far. 33 lakh 81,671 vaccine doses were administered in the last 24 hours. India has reported 45,892 daily new cases in the last 24 hours. Also, less than 50,000 daily new cases have been reported since 11 continuous days now. India's active caseload today stands at 4,60,704, and active cases are now only 1.5% of the country's total positive cases. Out of the people infected since the beginning of the pandemic, 2 crore 98 lakh 43,825 people have already recovered from COVID-19, and 44,291 patients have recovered in the last 24 hours. This constitutes an overall recovery rate of 97.18%, which is showing a sustained increasing trend. With substantially ramped up testing capacity across the country, a total of 18,93,800 tests were conducted in the last 24 hours. Cumulatively, India has conducted over 42.52 crore tests so far. While on one side, testing capacity has been enhanced across the country, a continued decline in the weekly caseload and case positivity is also being noticed. Weekly positivity rate is currently at 2.37%, while the daily positivity rate stands at 2.42% today. The daily positivity rate has remained less than 3% for 17 consecutive days now and has remained below 5% for over a month. Maharashtra government has allowed conditioned reopening of schools from 15th of July. Classes 8th to 12th will be started in the first phase based on the criteria related to COVID in villages where no corona patient has been found for the last 1 month, and in the future the village panchayat has unanimously decided to keep the village corona free. Classes 8th to 12th will be sanctioned to start from 15th of July. It is mandatory for all to strictly abide by the corona prevention rules laid down by the state government before starting school. Government announced that prior to the commencement of the school, corona vaccination of all teachers and non-teaching staff in the respective schools should be done as a matter of priority. In view of the significant reduction in COVID-19 positivity rate and the daily fatality rate, Himachal Pradesh has decided to increase the limit of gathering in all the social, academic, entertainment, cultural, political and other congregations, including marriage celebrations and functions with 50% capacity with a ceiling of maximum 200% persons indoor in an indoor built-up or covered area in the state, whereas gathering in open spaces has also been allowed with 50% capacity of the ground. The state government has also decided to recommend to the governor to convene the monsoon session of Himachal Pradesh Vidhan Sabha from 2nd of August to 13th of August. Schools, however, would remain closed for students till further orders, and online study would continue as usual. Madhya Pradesh government has extended the COVID-19 restrictions till July 15th. In a letter sent to all district collectors, Additional Chief Secretary has asked them to strictly implement the COVID guidelines. At the same time, more than 2 crore 24 lakh vaccines have been administered in the state so far. In Kerala, the revised restrictions based on the test positivity rate in the state will come into effect from today. Stringent regulations will be implemented in those areas where the test positivity rate is more than 15%. In areas where the test positivity rate is less than 10%, the government offices are allowed to function with the entire staff. Hotels and restaurants in such areas can operate till 9:30 at night, but services will be restricted to parcels and home delivery only. Gymnasiums and indoor games are allowed to resume their function, but the use of air conditioners will not be allowed. Social distancing norms should be strictly adhered to. In the areas where the test positivity rate is between 10 to 15%, the government officers should restrict their staff percentage to 50%. Accommodation facilities in tourist spots can be opened to the public as per central guidelines, but entry will be restricted to those with negative RT-PCR certificate and also those who have taken the vaccination. Up next, we're heading for a short commercial break. You're watching DD India. Stay with us.
नमस्ते लैंड
मरहबन इलल हिंद
सलाम इंडिया नमस्ते इंडिया
नमस्कार भारत
मुई इंडिया
नहनु हुनूर इंडिया
माँ हिंदी हस्ती
हिंदियानी
सलाम हिंदुस्तान
We are India.
Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in all Southeast Asian countries. STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east. For technical details, scan here. Switch to DD India now. With the world's largest COVID vaccination drive, India is leading the way. As the vaccine reaches every corner of the nation, do not forget the mantra, Dawai bhi, Kadai bhi. Let's continue our fight against COVID-19. Vaccination along with social distancing, sanitization and masks.
Mask up, India!
Put your mask on and cover your nose and be safe.
Mask up, India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India. Let's get to more news updates. Former Maharashtra Minister Eknath Khadse today appeared before the Enforcement Directorate office in Mumbai in a money laundering case linked with a land deal in Pune. While arriving at ED's office, he said that he'll cooperate in the investigation. However, he added that this questioning is politically motivated and he has already been inquired for 5 times. It is being done again now, and he also said that the Anti-Corruption Bureau has given a report that there is no evidence against him. Enforcement Directorate yesterday arrested his son-in-law Girish Chaudhary in this case, and currently he is in ED's custody. 4 terrorists were killed in 2 separate overnight gunfights with security forces in Pulwama and Kulgam districts of South Kashmir today. Now, according to Kashmir police, 4 terrorists were killed in last 12 hours in separate encounters from South Kashmir. 2 terrorists were killed in brief shootout at Kulgam, whereas 2 more terrorists were killed in Pulwama gunfight. Overall, 5 terrorists have been killed in the last 24 hours in the valley, including a longest surviving Hizbul Mujahideen terrorist from North Kashmir. Meanwhile, Twitter handle of Kashmir Police Zone wrote, and I quote, 5 terrorists killed in 24 hours in Kashmir. Congratulations to police and security forces for conducting the operations without collateral damage. Meanwhile, in another development from the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, Army foiled an infiltration bid from across the border and shot dead 1 intruder. A group of Pakistani terrorists made an attempt to infiltrate across the line of control in Nowshera sector in Rajouri district in the early hours on Wednesday. However, alert army troops deployed on the line of control thwarted the infiltration bid by suitably employing an integrated surveillance grid along with domination by fire and engaging the terrorists in a fierce firefight in which 1 terrorist was neutralized and his body has been recovered. Defense spokesperson told DD News that warlike stores including an AK-47 rifle, 4 magazines of AK-47 with ammunition and 2 hand grenades have been recovered from the slain terrorist. In a rare diplomatic gesture, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar travelled to Tehran and called on Iranian President-elect Ebrahim Raisi a month before he assumes office. The External Affairs Minister, who made a transit halt in Tehran on his way to Moscow for bilateral consultations, handed over a personal message to the President-elect from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Dr. Jaishankar also met his Iranian counterpart Javad Zarif. Later in a tweet, the External Affairs Minister said, "Thank President-elect Ebrahim Raisi for his gracious welcome, handed over a personal message from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, appreciate his warm sentiments for India, deeply value his strong commitment to strengthen our bilateral ties and expand cooperation on regional and global issues." Former Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister and senior Congress leader Veerbhadra Singh passed away early this morning in Shimla after prolonged illness. He was 87 years of age. He suffered a heart attack on Monday and was in the critical care unit of Indira Gandhi Medical College in Shimla. The 9-time MLA and 5-time MP, Singh served as Himachal Pradesh's Chief Minister for 6 times. The veteran Congress leader also served as Union Deputy Minister, Tourism and Civil Aviation, Minister of State for Industries, Union Minister of Steel and Union Minister of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. President Ramnath Kovind has expressed grief over the demise of former Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister. The President said in a tweet, "Sad to know that Shri Veerbhadra Singh is no more. His political career, spanning 6 decades in his roles as Chief Minister and parliamentarian, was marked by his commitment to serve people of Himachal Pradesh. Condolences to family and followers." Expressing grief over demise of veteran politician, Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted. He said that Shri Veerbhadra Singh had a long political career with rich administrative and legislative experience. He played a pivotal role in Himachal Pradesh and served the people of the state. Saddened by his demise, condolences to his family and supporters. Om Shanti. In international updates, 4 people suspected of assassinating Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse have been shot dead by the security forces. Police said that 2 others have been detained, while officers are still in combat with some remaining suspects in the nation's capital, Port-au-Prince. Haitian president was assassinated by unidentified attackers in an attack on their home in the nation's capital. His wife, who was also attacked, is reported to be in a stable but critical condition. Interim Prime Minister Claude Joseph has called for calm and declared a state of emergency nationwide. In a televised remark after chairing a cabinet, he said that the police and army had the security situation under control. It was unclear who would succeed Moise as president. He had appointed a new prime minister this week who was yet to be sworn in. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres denounced Haitian president's assassination, while the UN Security Council expressed deep shock, sorrow and sympathy over Moise's death ahead of a likely meeting today. UN spokesman Stéphane Dujarric said in a statement that the perpetrators of this crime must be brought to justice. He assured that the United Nations will continue to stand with the government and the people of Haiti. Haitian Prime Minister Claude Joseph urged the Security Council to meet as soon as possible and called the international community to launch an investigation into the assassination. The Security Council last week said in a statement that it was deeply concerned by the political security and humanitarian conditions in Haiti and stressed on the primary responsibility of the government of Haiti to address the situation.
Secretary General condemned in the strongest terms the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse of Haiti. The perpetrators of this crime must be brought to justice. The Secretary General extends his deepest condolences to the people and government of Haiti and the family of the late president. The Secretary General calls on all Haitians to preserve the constitutional order, remain united in the face of this abhorrent act, and reject all violence. The United Nations will continue to stand with the government and people of Haiti.
The U.S. State Department condemned the assassination of Haitian President. State Department spokesman Ned Price said that there are reports that the attackers were Drug Enforcement Administration agents. These were absolutely false. He, however, added that Washington was prepared to respond to requests and ready to support Haitian authorities' investigation.
We have made very clear to Haitian authorities the United States is standing ready to provide assistance, and we are prepared to provide any and all forms of appropriate assistance to our Haitian partners.
Leaders of Latin America also condemned the assassination of Haiti's president. Colombia president called on the Organization of American States to send an urgent mission to Haiti to protect the democratic order. Meanwhile, leaders of Central American countries appealed for calm, social peace and respect to democracy. Former Labour Party head Isaac Herzog has been sworn in as Israel's president and pledged to use the largely ceremonial role to try to heal the deep divisions within the Israeli society. In a pomp-filled ceremony in the parliament, Herzog embraced the outgoing president Reuven Rivlin before taking the oath of office to applause from lawmakers beginning a 7-year term. First elected to parliament in 2003, Herzog led the left-wing Labour Party and held several portfolios in coalition governments. His most recent public post was as the head of the Jewish Agency for Israel, which encourages immigration. Defeated by former Premier Benjamin Netanyahu in a 2015 election, Herzog was elected as the president by parliament in June. South Africa former President Jacob Zuma will hand himself over to serve 15 months in jail for contempt of court. This is the first indication yet that Zuma is willing to serve his prison term. The Constitutional Court gave Zuma a 15-month jail term last week for defying an instruction earlier this year to give evidence at an inquiry into corruption during his 9 years in power until 2018. Afghan Special Forces yesterday carried out operations to drive Taliban fighters out of Kunduz city as the war has reached the gates of the provincial capital. Most Kunduz districts have fallen to Taliban. since the United States announced plans in April to withdraw its troops without conditions by September 11. After nearly 20 years of conflict, violence has escalated throughout the country as the Islamist Taliban seeks more territory. Notably, talks between the Afghan government and Taliban negotiators in Qatar have failed to make substantive progress, though the warring sides have been holding meetings in recent days. Dubai's media office announced that a fire on a ship at Dubai's Jebel Ali port has been brought under control. The fire, which was caused by an explosion from a normal accident in a container holding flammable material, has now been doused. No casualties have been reported yet. DMO in a tweet said that the ship, which was not identified, was preparing to dock at one of the berths away from the port's main shipping line. Meanwhile, witnesses had heard a blast and 2 fire trucks and other emergency vehicles could also be seen heading south of Dubai. In Florida, crews recovered 18 more bodies on Wednesday in the ruins of a Miami area condo complex that collapsed nearly 2 weeks ago. Florida officials said that there was no longer hope that any of the nearly 100 people still missing might be found alive. A total of 54 bodies have been recovered from the ruins of the Champlain Towers South building so far. The announcement of ending rescue operation comes as a result of a consensus by those closest to the rescue efforts that the possibility of someone still alive is near zero. The Inter-American Commission on Human Rights says that the Colombian government must hold genuine dialogue with civil society and ensure punishment for security force members who have committed abuses after violence at weeks of anti-government protest led to at least 27 deaths. The largely peaceful protest, which began on April 28th, initially attracted thousands of marchers and occasionally turned violent. Colombia's Attorney General's office has directly linked 27 deaths to the demonstrations and is verifying 11 more, while human rights groups say that they have confirmed as many as 40 deaths with dozens more under investigation. Meanwhile, the government says that Attorney General's office is already investigating the abuses which have been repeatedly condemned by President Ivan Duque. Also, major protest groups have now suspended demonstrations. One union president says that bigger demonstrations will occur if demands are not met. Up next, a short break. Stay with us. You're watching DD India.
As the day unfolds and news and events take shape, we get you complete coverage of every news breaking in, tracking new developments as they happen. Midday Prime English, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. on DD India.
Kitchen waste, green waste, dried leaves from the garden, which are a source of carbon.
The money we received from the government added to our savings all went into the rice mill. I was into athletics before going in for judo, which really attracted me. It is a wonderful sport for girls and very beneficial.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India. Up next, we get a quick look at the COVID-19 numbers from across the world. Now, as per the figures, more than 18 crore 58 lakh people have been infected with the virus so far. The recoveries have crossed 17 crore mark. The disease has claimed over 40 lakh lives globally. The US has been the worst affected country with more than 3 crore 46 lakh total infections, and the fatalities stand at more than 6 lakh 21,000 from the pandemic. World Health Organization has urged countries to use extreme caution when reopening their economies from COVID-19 restrictions so as not to lose the gains you have made. WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus reminded people that the pandemic was not over yet and that the 4 million reported deaths milestone has just been passed. Taking chief's statement forward, head of WHO Emergencies Program Mike Ryan warned that countries with low COVID-19 vaccination rates combined with the lifting of restrictions were a toxic mixture.
The world is at perilous point in this pandemic. We have just passed the tragic milestone of 4 million recorded COVID-19 deaths, which likely underestimates the overall toll. Some countries with high vaccination coverage are now planning to roll out booster shots in the coming months and are dropping public health social measures and relaxing as though the pandemic is already over.
What we're saying in particular is that countries opening up who have very low levels of vaccine coverage in the presence of variants is a real toxic mixture for your hospitals filling up again, and this is something that must absolutely be avoided.
Vaccination has become a matter of debate in France as the government is urging citizens to keep on getting vaccinated and is considering making it compulsory for health workers. French presidency spokesman Gabriel Attal has earlier warned a rift might appear between vaccinated citizens and others. The highly contagious Delta variant now represents around 40% of the new COVID-19 infections in France. From a 7-day average to more than 42,000 new infections per day mid-April, the infection rate has plunged to just over 1,800 at the end of June. But since then, the trend has reversed. The number of daily new cases is back above 2,500 again and increasing at double-digit percentage rates per week. The Delta variant of the virus spreads through the Middle East's worst hit country as Iran speeds up its vaccination drive to inoculate the adult population with its own homegrown COVID-19 vaccine. Vaccinations with the Coviran Barakat vaccine, developed by a state-affiliated conglomerate, started in recent weeks. Health authorities have declared the capital Tehran and 91 other cities and towns as high-risk red zones. 30 of them declared so more than a week ago. They are ordering internal travel restrictions, the closure of non-essential businesses, and limiting work attendance to 30% of the employees in the capital. Iran's president-elect Ibrahim Raisi vowed that his government, which will take over in early August, would start rapid COVID-19 vaccinations to help relaunch the crippling economy. Iran, with a population of 83 million, has recorded over 84,627 deaths from the virus, the highest toll in the Middle East. Spain's health minister has warned that young people can develop severe cases of COVID-19 and asked for their cooperation in taming an infection rate that has more than doubled in a week. The warning comes as the Delta variant tears through unvaccinated younger groups. The national infection rate, as measured over the past 14 days, soared to 252 cases per 100,000 people on Wednesday from 117.2 a week ago. Other European countries such as Germany and France have begun vaccination all adults, but Spain is still working through age groups. Scrambling to bring the contagion under control, the northeastern region of Catalonia will shut down nightclubs from tomorrow, just weeks after opening them. A brigade of 200 doctors and nurses from all over Cuba specialized in pandemic situations are arriving to Matanzas in western Cuba to help slow the growing number of COVID-19 cases. Matanzas is not the only affected region of Cuba, as the country is living its worst moment since the start of the pandemic, with a record average of 3,439 daily cases during the first days of July. The province is on the brink of collapse due to the presence of the Delta variant, whereas health workers in Cardenas are complaining about a lack of medicine, oxygen tanks, respirators, and also other equipment. On the other hand, 36 military doctors and nurses and more than 350 medical students will be joining the 200 doctors of the Henry Reeve Brigade. Together, they will try to control the epidemiological situation in the midst of a grave political crisis, accentuated by a series of economic sanctions from the US and also domestic inefficiencies. Meanwhile, the Cuban government hopes that the Abdala vaccine with 92.28% efficacy in 3 doses could stall the rising numbers. As a warm gesture, New York City threw a ticker tape parade for essential workers in the honor of their heroism on the front lines in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic on Wednesday. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, New York City Intensive Care Unit nurse Sandra Lindsay smiled and waved to the cheering onlookers. For generations, ticker tape parades in the largest US city have been typically reserved for championship sports clubs, astronauts and war veterans, but this time it cheered for the pandemic heroes. In addition to healthcare workers, the parade honored police officers, teachers and transportation workers who went to their jobs each day during the pandemic despite the risks. Since most indoor capacity restrictions throughout the city were lifted in May, the parade gives a new sign to the New Yorkers. Time now for a short break again. When we come back, we'll get you the sports updates. Stay with us.
With the world's largest COVID vaccination drive, India is leading the way. As the vaccine reaches every corner of the nation, do not forget the mantra, Dawai bhi, Kadai bhi. Let's continue our fight against COVID-19. Vaccination along with social distancing, sanitization and masks.
Mask up, India!
Put your mask on and cover your nose and be safe.
Mask Up India. Your window to rising India. India's voice on global platforms. Latest news from India and around the world. In-depth analysis of global headlines. Watch DD India in your country. Available for downlink in Central Asian countries. STTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 17 at 93.5 degrees east. HDTV broadcast is available through the satellite GSAT 10 at 83 degrees east. For technical details, scan here. Switch to DD India now.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India, and up next, let's get you sports updates. Roger Federer's bid for a 9th Wimbledon title is over after he was stunned in straight sets by Hubert Hurkacz in the quarterfinals. The Swiss lost to the 14th seed Pole, who reached his first Grand Slam semi-final. It is the first time 20-time major champion Federer has lost a set to love at the All England Club. Hurkacz will play 7th seed Matteo Berrettini for a place in Sunday's final. The Italian defeated Canada's Felix Auger-Aliassime to reach his first Wimbledon semi-final. World number 1 Novak Djokovic reached Wimbledon semi-finals. The Serb superstar had to work to a 6-3, 6-4, 6-4 set against Martin Fucsovics of Hungary in a match that lasted for over 2 hours and 17 minutes. Meanwhile, Canadian Denis Shapovalov produced a stunning finish to defeat Russia's Karen Khachanov in 5 sets and also reached the semi-finals of the Wimbledon. The 22-year-old was initially trailing for 2 sets before he made a blazing return to win 6-4, 3-6, 5-7, 6-1, 6-4. Italy's Matteo Berrettini beat 16-seed Felix Auger-Aliassime in the quarterfinals to reach the next stage, where he will meet Hubert Hukas. Berrettini defeated Canada's Felix 6-3, 5-7, 7-5 and 6-3. In football, Eurocup 2020 saw England defeat Denmark 2-1 in extra time to face Italy in the final clash. It was Harry Kane's goal in the extra time that helped England clinch the lead. While no team managed to net a goal in the second half, the first half of the semi-final saw Mikael Damsgaard of Denmark score a goal, which was equalised by England's Raheem Sterling. With registering a win at Wembley Stadium, London, the Three Lions have reached the first major international tournament final after a span of 55 years. In the first semi-final, Italy beat Spain on penalties to reach the final of the tournament. And the next report brings you the story of grit and determination. 2 athletes who have not only made a wildcard entry to Tokyo 2020, but also will look forward to bring laurels to their country. Take a look.
Kimia Yusufi and Shah Mahmood Noorzahi are among the 5 Afghan athletes who will be competing in the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. It will be the second Olympics after the 2016 Rio Games for the 25-year-old sprinter Yusufi, who is also the only female athlete to take part in both the games representing Afghanistan. For Yusufi, an Afghan refugee born in Iran, the road to the grand stage at Olympics was not an easy one. Her family fled their home country during the Taliban reign. Growing up in a foreign land, Yusufi had to work extremely hard.
After participating in the Rio 2016 Olympics 5 years ago, my dream has always been to become a world record holder one day. I'm sure this will happen one day. To achieve this dream, I have always exercised hard day and night with the support of my family. I have also ignored all my other pastimes and programs that every girl does in life. For example, going out with friends or spending time with family. And I just practiced. My concern is about the peace process, especially about what would happen to girls and their sports if they make peace with the Taliban. At the moment, my biggest worry is about how much freedom female athletes would be allowed to have in a society.
Compared to Yusufi, who now has access to training facilities in Iran, Noorzahi has to do with what he can get his hands on.
I have been preparing for the Olympics for 2.5 years. I am now quite ready to go to Japan to break the Afghan record and win an Olympic gold medal for Afghanistan for the first time. Given that no one from Afghanistan has won a gold medal in the Olympics Games so far.
Apart from dilapidated sports facilities, security concerns are always in the back of his mind.
Our sports facilities are minimal, especially in athletics. We do not have a standard track surface or special shoes to prepare like athletes in other countries, such as the United States, countries where athletes have a lot of facilities and can prepare for competitions properly. There is a lot of fighting in Farah. I remember during the holy month of Ramadan, I would do stretching exercise at home at 11 o'clock at night. then do sprint exercise outside my house very quickly and go back home as soon as I can. Due to insecurity and war, I have been out of training many times.
All 5 Afghan athletes, the other 3 competing in taekwondo, swimming and shooting, failed to qualify for the Tokyo Games and will participate on wildcard entry. Both Yousafzai and Noorzahi are current national record holders, with Yousafzai at 13.33 per 100 meter for the women's 100 meter dash and Noorzahi the record holder of men's 200 meter run. Both will compete in the 100 meters event in Tokyo Olympics. The pair left Kabul for Tokyo on July 4th and will spend 15 days at a training camp in Fukuoka before the Olympic begins on 23rd of July. Sports Desk, DD India.
All right, with that report of grit and determination, we end this bulletin here. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.